Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of Crossover Event. And what's everybody talking about right now? Batman!
Oh,
that's right. The Batman is about to premiere.
You're going to say the Ukraine, but okay, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, everybody should be talking about Ukraine. They're Ukraine.
Maybe we can
but
send
to
Batman.
get away from that, hey, it's nostalgia week. Part of nostalgia is the fear of nuclear annihilation from Russia, but also
that brings me back.
The return of the Batman. We have a new Batman movie coming out, directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson, who was already famous for being in a vampire movie. So it was like he was training for Batman to begin with.
Yeah.
But on this week's episode, we're going to be talking about all things live action Batman.
Well, yeah, and I'm sorry for that because I know immediately some of y'all are like, oh, I want to talk about Mask of the Phantasm. I get it, I do too. But you know what? If we were to talk about animated Batman, we'd be here for a week.
Let's just establish that the animated Batman is the ultimate Batman. Can we all agree on that?
Yes.
Okay, now that that's out of the way, we can go into the live action Batman.
Yeah, because the new one is the Batman. Like, in case you were confused.
Yes.
Other Batman were just...
Those were other Batmans.
Yeah.
Batman Begins, the Dark Knight, and all this.
Can't believe you didn't sparkle, though. I'm very disappointed. Sparkle
you gotta save something for the next movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
I would say those movies have allowed him to just do whatever the hell he wants for the rest of his life, and I love that. Everything he's done since Twilight has just been, like, weird and off the wall and horrifying, and I adore it.
Yeah, I love that. I love Rob Pattinson's post-Twilight career.
Yeah.
It's been enough for people to go like, oh, he really can act.
If you're still like, come on, Robert Pattinson, the sparkle guy, you're like, you clearly haven't seen Good Times. I'm just saying.
Yeah, right?
Take all that Twilight money and just make movies about banging mermaids and losing your mind.
So instead of sparkling, he has decided to glower.
Yes.
For about 3 hours in
the
new movie.
But, you know, if you stick around and you want to watch the bonus content on oneofus.net, you're going to get to see me and Martin actually do a full spoiler review.
I know.
We're going to, for those people who are like, okay, I saw it, or that I don't care about spoilers, just tell me. We're going to go into it, but you got to be a One of Us subscriber, the brown coat level or above, to be able to actually see that review. But you know what? We're here to talk about the history of live action Batman. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Most people don't know that history goes all the way back to the 1940s.
Sure. To cereals.
To cereal. Not like, you know, cereals.
I mean, you could eat your cereal while you were at the theater paying a nickel to watch a black and white serial that lasted, those were like 10, 15 minutes long?
Yeah, but in like multiple chapters. You know, it was like a whole bunch of them. Mm. And there were like 2 in quick succession that came out with different actors playing Batman and Robin in both particular occasions.
Also, the radio. The radio show, and Batman and Robin would appear on the Superman radio show.
But once again, live action film.
Live action. Sorry. All right.
So it's funny, they were a monster success. They were very, very successful at the time, and they led to a lot of consideration of more and more superhero type things happening. I mean, there already were your Zorros and your what do you call it, Green Hornets and what have you.
Zorro is the prototype for Batman.
Yeah, most certainly. But funny enough, the only reason that we have the modern day Batman, some argue, is because of the original serial. Because much later on in the 80s, Hugh Hefner from Playboy magazine hosted a big party at his house because he had gotten a hold of really nice prints of the original serial run, and he invited a bunch of celebrities and friends and Hollywood, upper echelon types. Like, we're going to watch these, they're great. And everybody loved it. And reportedly, the discussions there were like, yeah, why isn't there like anything new with Batman going on? It's been a while.
Interesting.
And that led to sort of the modern day renaissance, if you will, of Batman. But to really get into, I mean, obviously most of you haven't seen those. I know that both those original serials are available. There are DVD copies of them out there if you want to watch them. For the record, the Batman cowl is ridiculous. Like, he's got like little sewed on like things like bat ears that like flop around. It just looks awful. But you know, the first really major thing was, of course, in the 60s with Adam West and Burt Ward.
Yeah.
Boy, that Batman 60s TV show as a kid, that was my whole life.
It's weird. It was my whole life too, but I thought it was ridiculous and thought, man, Batman's terrible. I wouldn't stop watching the show.
Right.
But he and Robin just felt goofy. It wasn't until later that I gained the appreciation for, like, oh, this is a parody.
Yes.
This is hilarious.
Very intentional satire. I can't speak to what people's response was who were actually reading the comic books at that point, which were, a little more serious. The comedic Batman in comics didn't actually come till post Adam West Batman.
Right.
That kind of inspired that whole long run of Batman comics that were like, the ridiculous covers where they're on a giant crazy track.
It's always a thing.
Yeah.
The comics will come out first, and then there'll be a media based on it, and that will inform the comics, and the comics try to copy that. And then later, when there's new media, it'll go like, oh, well, look and see what the comics are doing.
But interestingly enough, I don't know if all of y'all have seen yet, and you should, and I'm telling you, Danny, you have to see this as Batman the movie.
You're the baby of the bunch.
There was a movie they put out because of the ridiculously huge monster success of the first season of the show, and it really was. It was culture changing. Like every talk show was having Batman jokes. It was gigantic.
Every famous person wanted to be a guest star on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the list of guest stars on the Batman TV show in the 60s, it's insane the amount of great actors that appeared and stuff there, and 3 different Catwomen even.
That's true.
But between the first and second season, it was so successful, they're like, well, let's make a movie, which was unheard of, just making a movie out of a TV show like that. And the weird question I always asked was, us living in Austin, Texas, I'm like, wait, that movie premiered in Austin, Texas with all the celebrities and a parade, literally a Batman parade. Why in the world would they come to the Austin, Texas, which at that point was not exactly a film hub?
True, but if you walk 7 blocks from where the movie premiered, you'd be at the bridge that is famous for having bats.
For having bats.
Yeah.
Well, the reason is because the guys who designed the bat boat featured in the movie it was a company from Austin, Texas, and they were like, well, what do you want for making the bat boat? And they're like, we want you to make the premiere in Austin, Texas with all the celebrities. So, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But great show. Well worth watching. Yes, it's silly and a big satire of it, but at the same time, it went on to influence
everything.
I mean, the comics, the movies, especially what we're going to talk about next. Even more recently, before Adam West died, there was 2 direct-to-video animated films that were in that universe with Adam West and Burt Ward recreating their roles, which are really cute and fun, and I recommend.
I love those movies.
Oh yeah, I had a great time.
I didn't expect to, and I fell in love with them.
But of course, the big thing in live-action film for Batman was Tim Burton's Batman, which came out, and it was, as much as the television show was a success for television and a game changer, even more so was that movie, which was so ridiculously gigantic. It was, I remember, I'm sure you do too, it was everywhere. You could not escape it.
Couldn't escape it.
Yeah, just
bat symbols everywhere.
That simple poster and thing with just a black poster with the yellow and black Batman logo. That was all they needed. It was so simple, and everyone in the world got so excited.
You never knew the world was so hungry for a serious Batman. And boy, were they ever.
They were, although serious,
I was going to say.
Why so serious?
I mean, serious compared to what we'd had.
Absolutely.
At that point.
In retrospect, it's so interesting, though, that in retrospect, like at the time that was thought of as such a dark Batman. They're like, oh, this is a kid's cartoon. And of course, you have your like pearl clutching parents who are like, oh. But now that Batman seems like kindergarten.
It's silly now to watch it. You can go through it and there's so much to laugh at. But at the time, everybody was hungry for get away from the Adam West, get away from the silly superheroes, and get a serious Batman. And it was the first time, I want to say it's the first time, where a Hollywood studio took a comic book property seriously.
Oh, completely. I mean, I would argue Superman and Superman 2.
Oh, no, you're right. Superman from 1978.
But Superman 3 pretty much, and 4 especially, tanked the superhero industry entirely. Ruined all of the goodwill from those original films.
You get 2 great movies. They're like, hey, we're taking this seriously, we're doing it, and the fans love it. And then as these things go, by the time they get to the 3rd movie, they lose whatever they had. But to bring Batman to the forefront in a dark and serious way, that was the first time. And it has been the thing that has informed all the movies since then.
Oh, absolutely. Like, you can't not look especially at the creation of Gotham in that film, which is spectacular. It's just such a gorgeous visualization of what Gotham could be that was right out of multiple different comic book artists' ideas, but nonetheless, to see that on screen and for real, and to get Jack Nicholson as the Joker, I mean, which is the highest profile casting.
No, that was the big thing, to get a big actor like Jack Nicholson, and it made people who normally wouldn't take it seriously take it seriously. Gotham City was designed by Anton Furst, and Tim Burton, he seemed to be more interested in Gotham than Batman himself.
Oh, I would agree
which
with
is
that 100%.
evident in Batman Returns, where he didn't care about Batman at all.
For the record, one of the only things that really annoyed me about that initial Batman movie was always, I like Prince a lot, but all the dancing Prince product placement stuff is so awkward and uncomfortable in the film itself. Like, hey, let's stop the movie so we can do this thing. And apparently both Burton and especially designer of the soundtrack, composer of this original soundtrack, Danny Elfman, were really pissed off about it.
I get that. I see how it doesn't fit, but Prince was with Warner Brothers, and they were like, hey, there's a chance to, pump both of these things. And the Batman album is one of my favorite Prince albums, so I can't knock
the
it.
songs are great. I'm not
I know. You go like, these are great songs for something else.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
I still remember when we saw Spider-Man in the theater. We both kind of looked at each other with that, oh God, no, it's another Prince scene face with it. And now Macy Gray. We're like, wait, what?
yeah. And wasn't it oh God, who's the band that everybody hates?
Which one? Nickelback?
Nickelback.
Didn't they do the hero song for that?
Yes, they
Did
did.
they?
Okay.
I have a whole chunk of feelings about that situation. If we ever do a Spider-Man breakdown, I will talk at length about the placement of that Nickelback song.
Oh my God.
But enough with this intro. Let's get into these actual Batman movies.
Well, yeah. I mean, are we still in the intro? I thought we were just going through the movies, right?
Okay.
I do want to say both versions of the soundtrack were bestsellers. Both the original score by
I
Elfman.
bought both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people did for all of the original Batman films, which even as it went into the shittier ones, the soundtracks were still
Well,
pretty
dude,
good.
I mean, look, I like I said, the Prince soundtrack, one of my favorite Prince albums, but also what Danny Elfman did with the score.
Yeah.
I mean, who could not drive at night and have that playing? And you killed my parents.
This explains a lot about your driving. I've been in a car with you.
Yeah.
So I understand. But it was followed up, of course, with Batman Returns, which Burton, despite reports to the contrary, enthusiastically returned to.
Did he really?
Oh, most definitely. He was like, I have so
every
many...
time I watch it, it feels like a contractual obligation.
Well, there were so many more things he wanted to do that he wasn't really allowed to do in the original movie. He's like, okay, now that we've proven that this is going to be this monster gigantic thing, for me to be back, they're going to kind of give me what I want. So he was allowed to do a lot more what he want. A lot of the casting was more in line with what his vision was, as opposed to when you go through the list of people that they talked to play all the major roles in all the original Batman quadrilogy films, it's huge and crazy. And some of the things like, wait, what? Of who might have played parts or came close to it. We won't go into that mainly because I forgot to send myself the list. But sorry.
Sorry.
But Batman Returns, I think, doubled down on the darkness to a point where, even though it was very well critically received generally, a lot of audiences were kind of scared off by it because the first film was so kid-friendly, and this one was decidedly kind of grotesque.
Sure.
Well, that's certainly how Joel Schumacher ended up in directing the next one, because it was supposed to be continued by Tim Burton, but there was again a lot with the pearl clutching.
Yeah.
A lot with this isn't kid friendly and we can't sell action figures based on this. Like, can you imagine a Selena Kyle action figure with her hair all out at the end of the movie? That's intense.
Even the evolution
I would
from
buy it.
3, which Joel Schumacher, as you said, took over, which is decidedly lighter and more friendly, to 4. Even then with 3, there were people complaining like, this is still too dark. Can you make it even lighter?
Yeah, because 3 isn't that big of a leap from 2.
Yeah.
But 4 is a whole new animal.
4 was he went, okay, fine, you want it lighter? Let's go back to the Adam West thing.
West, yes.
Yeah.
These are comic books, not serious books. It's like...
Reportedly, Schumacher actually, on the set, would constantly tell people before they would shoot, remember your cartoon characters.
Yeah.
like just constantly reminding them, this shouldn't be real, this should be ridiculous, this should be super silly. Play it that way.
Are you talking about in 3?
In 4.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, where he was lectured after 3, like, it's still not silly enough.
Wow,
Which is
really?
so crazy to me.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if that's John Peters' influence, but to be fair, John Peters was involved with the creation of the first 2 films deeply, so...
He was also involved with cocaine a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a reason why that whole Kevin Smith story about the giant mechanical spider, right?
Yeah.
That's John Peters, right?
Yeah. And that whole section of Licorice Pizza where they stopped the movie just to go like, hey, this guy was crazy, just so you know.
But, the second film led to Michelle Pfeiffer being a even bigger star than she already was, even though she wasn't the first choice. It was Annette Bening. She was cast,
and
had
got pregnant,
contracts drawn up, and she got pregnant and was like, the way it works with scheduling, they're not going to push a whole movie back. So it's
Plus you had Sean Young really going out of her way to get that
Oh
part.
man, she showed up in the producer's office wearing a full Catwoman costume. That is not an apocryphal story. That really happened and really apparently freaked out everyone in that office.
It's too bad because I honestly think she could have pulled it off.
She would have been great at it, actually. Yeah, I agree. But Pfeiffer, of course, is like the iconic Catwoman. It's if you like nothing else about Batman Returns. I mean, come on.
That is the thing because I'm not a fan of that movie at all.
Really?
Yeah. I've rewatched it several times and I just don't like it. I don't like the fact that they cast Danny DeVito, who would have been a perfect Penguin, but dressed him up in so much prosthetics and all. But the one thing I do come back to that I like over and over is Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman.
Yeah. No, I mean, she's great in it. And there's so many, oh my God, she just delivers her lines so well. There's a wonderful moment I still laugh at where they're fighting and she goes, how could you? I'm a woman. And then she proceeds to kick his ass. And I'm like, that's amazing.
And there are so many things about that, like even though it was a very different time and place socially, about her story as like a woman in this very cutthroat male run spot, and like her answering machine gets me every time. Her mother, like, are you oh hey Selena, I can't go out, I just need to take some me time, and then the advertisement for the Gotham perfume or whatever. Like her, even though we don't have answering machines anymore, that scene gets me every time.
It was so popular, her performance in there, that they signed her to go on and do a spin-off, right? Which was originally she was supposed to be
Catwoman
in.
movie
She was supposed to be in the third film.
Yeah.
They canceled that because they were like, oh well, we're definitely doing the spin-off about Michelle Pfeiffer, which never happened for Hollywood reasons, and. Eventually, they were like, "Well, we're sticking with it." It was the same script for a long time with Ashley Judd, who was in the role for a while, and then eventually we got the Halle Berry one, which love Halle Berry, but
well, you know what? Halle Berry's just an actress in a movie that has so many different people writing and directing it. Right. I saw that recently. I missed it when it came out.
Oh, you've never seen it before?
I'd never seen it until earlier this year.
It's a woof.
It is. But I've seen so many bad movies now. I'm like. Yeah, it's another bad movie amongst the rest. It's not any worse than some of the others.
I've seen much worse.
And I've seen much worse. And there is a point where it kind of nods to the whole Michelle Pfeiffer thing.
It does.
Where it's kind of saying like, yeah, you being reborn by cats. This has happened before. It's a thing we do.
But, before we move on from the Burton Shoemaker period of films, I just want to say, apparently Schwarzenegger was not originally cast as Mr. Freeze. There was a bunch of other people that were in the outfit.
We haven't even touched on 3. What? Don't be
I'm
before
sorry.
we move on.
Sure.
We haven't even touched.
I'll say this
3.
about 3. The most famous story that people talk about 3, which has more recently come out, was that Tommy Lee Jones was such a gigantic jerk during this film.
Oh no, that came out back when it was
Okay.
released. Yeah.
All right, I've been reading stuff about it more coming out lately, where apparently he just flat out lit into Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
It was like, I hate you. I hate what you do. You're a ridiculous buffoon. I mean, literally said
on the whole,
these
it really
words to
sounds like that whole set was just a very uncomfortable, toxic place to be.
Yeah.
But
Val Kilmer was also
absolutely,
difficult as hell.
and there are reports of Joel Schumacher being kind of a d-bag. Like, I mean, it's just Hollywood, but I grew up on that movie. That was one of the VHS tapes that I had in my home that I was watching way younger than I should have. And I don't say that because it was not necessarily that it was child inappropriate, but like, I'm not saying that Batman Forever made me kinky, but like Batman Forever made me kinky. Like, that movie is so horny. Joel Schumacher is so horny. Like,
It's true.
and it's so funny to me too, because I always joke around. I'm like, why isn't Batman in therapy? And I could go on
Sure.
about this. And they're like, yeah, we're going to tackle that. But also his therapist is very horny
Yes.
and totally unethical.
Yes.
And we're just going to breeze right past all
Yes.
of that.
Yes.
Here is a very hot Nicole Kidman, and this is Batman in therapy. You're welcome.
That's
Oh,
right.
a ridiculously hot Nicole.
Like,
Yeah, who originally was cast as
What?
Poison Ivy.
I could see
Yeah,
that.
that was
Yeah.
the
with the red
first
hair
person they
and all.
talked to for Poison
Jim
Ivy.
Carrey's obsession, or the Edward Nygma's obsession with Bruce Wayne, is super homoerotic.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very queer coded. And that's really lovely. There's a lot of queer coding between him and Two-Face. Like, it's just it's not Missy Pyle. I keep wanting to say Missy Pyle.
Oh, Missy Pyle's
but...
she's in the second one.
Yeah. Oh, it is Missy. It's Missy. No, it's
she-
Missy Pyle and Drew Barrymore, who are like.
Missy Pyle's in Batman Returns.
Okay.
Was she really?
Yes. She
Yes,
was. Oh,
yes.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. Was she the Snow Queen? I don't know.
I think
but
she's
she-
the Snow
long
Queen.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you have the other actress who was in a lot of things in the mid to late 90s, and then Drew Barrymore kind of playing the like the angel and the devil on Two-Face's shoulder
God, I haven't watched
in the
this
like
movie in so
split
long.
apartment. There's so many things aesthetically about that movie that just scream colorful kink dungeon
Yeah.
from top to bottom. And if you watch that movie and you sit down to watch it, and I say this all the time, if you sit down to watch that movie like you're watching a drag show, you will really enjoy it.
Wow. I mean, I enjoyed it when it came
great.
out, but now you give me a whole new perspective to
Oh, yeah.
rewatch it.
4 is even hornier in a lot of ways, but you're too
Well,
distracted by
it's
the
so
bad
focused
puns.
on the nipples.
Yeah, the jock strap,
Yeah,
the
yes.
jock, the bat
Yes.
jock.
Yes.
But it's funny. Speaking of Robin, which they focus on Robin's sexuality, an uncomfortable amount almost for
Sure.
a much older man directing this much younger man thing, but. He wasn't originally set to play. You know who was originally going to be Robin?
Marlon Wayans.
Marlon Wayans
Yeah.
was going to
I-
play a
They were talking about that
We
with the
really
first
missed
movie.
out on that one.
Yeah, he was going to be a black car mechanic who
Yeah.
somehow ran into them, but he was signed.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, like there were even plans. Like at one point, he was going to do a cameo towards the end of 2 to sort of lead into it. It
Sure.
was going to be Wayans,
Mm-hmm.
and it just
Well, all that,
Hollywood.
just even with Billy D. Williams, who's going to be Two-Face for the second movie.
Yeah.
Which in the recent comic book series, Batman '89, they focus on Billy D. Williams as Two-Face.
yeah, agreed. But 4 went on to like I said, they had to rewrite the whole script when they ended up casting Schwarzenegger, which I believe was a studio directive. Like we're getting Schwarzenegger because they were
Studios
like,
were way involved in the franchise.
He
by that
can't
point.
do the dialogue
No.
that was written for
Yeah.
this character. He can't pull off the pathos. So let's just give him a bunch of dumb puns to say. And, we ended up with Batman and Robin.
I really honestly feel like that movie is only worthwhile watching for Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. She is amazing. She is great. She
She's
steals the
she's
show.
the best thing about it.
That should have been her movie.
That's the thing. There's like you have those movie moments where you have like in Transformers, Megan Fox bending over the engine, and you're just like, oh, my breath has been taken away. Cameron Diaz in The Mask, when she steps out of the limo,
Yes.
it's like, oh my God.
Yes.
And Uma Thurman and Batman and Robin, when she comes out as Poison Ivy. It's
Yeah. She just
like, Jesus.
takes your breath
I
away.
always go with The Adventures of Baron Munchausen when she's Venus on the half shell. You're like, that's so beautiful. It looks like the original piece of art.
I would almost be there, but I feel like she was only like 17 at that time, and it's
Okay,
like
that's
fair. Because that would be like, oh, Scarlett Johansson in Lost in Translation, and
Right.
she's like, no, I was a kid when I did that.
She was like 17 and 18, I think. at
Yeah,
that
yeah.
point. Right. You can't say it about Ghost World. So
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So we're going to move on to the Nolan films, of course, which come up next, which are giant sensations. They once again revitalized the whole Batman thing by Christopher Nolan, who at that point was still kind of an unknown quantity.
Yeah, nobody really knew him that well. I mean,
Yeah.
like you knew Memento.
Yeah.
And that was about it.
And indeed, Guy Pearce was one of the first people he talked to come in and play the role of Bruce Wayne / Batman.
No
in
kidding.
there. Well,
I
yeah.
feel like his Batman voice would have been better.
Maybe
Maybe,
so.
maybe.
One of the big criticisms of those films has always been, I'm not sure Bale nailed the whole
Right.
Batman
Yeah,
voice.
yeah.
Which was the first time they had done that. The idea that he just talks in it like this every time he gets a chance, which
Yeah.
has been done a lot
And
since then.
the animated series did it a little bit.
Yeah,
He was
Kevin
Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
he
his his Batman between Batman and Bruce Wayne is perfect.
Oh,
though.
I know,
Like,
I know,
it's
I know,
flawless.
I know. It goes back to Bud Collyer from early on, from the Superman radio show, and then the Superman animated series from the '60s, where he could really talk in a higher register when he needed to be Clark Kent, and then drop it down to, but this is a job for Superman.
Well, funny enough, you mentioned Conroy, because in between Batman Begins, which was the first film in this trilogy, and The Dark Knight, because Batman Begins was a big hit, not as big as The Dark Knight,
Right.
but still a pretty sizable
Yeah,
hit.
yeah.
They put out an direct animated film that was in canon between the two films with a bunch of little short stories that Conroy voiced Batman for the same character.
Well, it's always been a thing with
Was that Gotham Knights?
Gotham Knights.
It's
yeah.
so good. God, I love that movie so much.
Yeah.
with every one of the animated series, it's always been based on the fact that, like, oh, we have a live action movie coming out.
Yeah.
We need to get an animated series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Batman was a huge hit. Everybody fell back in love with him, but this was a grounded Batman. This was a down to earth Batman.
A grounded. Not only it was like, hey, we're gonna take it. We'll make it dark, but make it realistic in such a way where you watch the journey of Bruce Wayne to Batman in such a way where he does it in a way that's logical, that doesn't require him to be a maniac or a lunatic. You're like, there's nothing mentally wrong with him. It's just like you watch it and you go like, okay, I see the path, and this makes sense without him having to have an issue.
And of course, I remember seeing it and going like, here it is finally. As a longtime comic book fan of Batman, like, this is the movie. It's not what the comic books is, but it is getting something from the character that we've never seen before. A level of seriousness, taking this character very seriously and making him plausible. Like, this was our world.
Plausible is the word. Yeah.
This is our world of Batman. And then, of course, that continued on with The Dark Knight, which, I mean, I don't have to tell you guys, was like such a huge hit that it actually won Oscars. I mean, the first one did too, I believe. Had like some sort of a technical Oscar.
Probably some technical Oscars.
But Dark Knight, wow, monster hit, and also a inbuilt tragedy with poor Heath Ledger, who was going from like, an actor everybody knew but wasn't an A-list actor, to like, oh, this guy's going to be one of the biggest actors in the world.
Well, not just that, because the last thing I'd seen him in right before The Dark Knight was The Brothers Grimm, where I was like, yeah, this guy's not very good. I don't know how he's going to do this.
Yeah.
And then just got to show us like, oh, this is what I've been storing up that you haven't seen.
Yeah, exactly. And boy, did he deliver. And apparently you read the stories about how he prepped for it. And he sat in a hotel room for apparently a month all by himself, wouldn't let anyone in, just practicing and rehearsing and trying to get into the mindset. And he created a Joker unlike any version of the Joker anyone has ever even visualized or seen. But of course, by doing that, defined for how people must think about the Joker going forward.
That's very true.
Yeah, it was amazing. I think I saw it 4 times in the theater. I saw it for the first time with you, I believe. So.
Well, a good Batman and a good Joker are chaos versus order, right? And those concepts evolve as our technology evolves, as we evolve as a society, and so him in particular. I mean, yes, Christian Bale's Batman to some extent, but definitely Heath Ledger's Joker really encapsulated this like late stage capitalism sense of chaos that was really indicative of the time and will go down sort of historically as this representation of pure anarchy of that era.
Oh, absolutely.
It's mind-blowing.
As well as the way it was shot. The Dark Knight was the first film ever to incorporate 70 millimeter IMAX into a standard release feature film. No one had ever done that before. 28 minutes of that film are in 70 millimeter IMAX. Yeah. And we were lucky we got to see it that way too at IMAX theater. And it's amazing. It was jaw-dropping. And Nolan, I feel like as much as Batman Begins is really, really great, this was the movie that created a legion of incredibly annoying Christopher Nolan fans who never shut up on the internet.
Oh, it certainly did. And of course, the Dark Knight is what everybody goes to. It came out the same year as Iron Man. And the two of them just really set the stage for like, okay, this is what superhero movies are now. And if you can't measure up to this, then please go home.
Yeah,
But also set the standard for the gritty remake too, which has now become like a long running joke of like, do we need to make this gritty? And like the answer is yes, Christopher Nolan, Batman, yes, but everything else probably no.
Probably no. Yeah,
Probably no.
no,
They're
How
gonna do it
edgy
anyway.
can we take this without people getting annoyed?
All that said, I have just as much love for Batman Begins. I rewatch it, and there's just so much of it that it feels like a film that's based on not just a comic book, but classic literature. Like that whole kind of Man in the Iron Mask, Count of Monte Cristo elements to it.
I love that movie. My only two things that really frustrated me is that like Rachel Dawes was just not a compelling character for me, and that's very frustrating when I'm watching this movie that's like full of dudes, and I'm like, oh, there's a woman, and
fair enough.
I don't see her as a fully fleshed out character that I'm invested in her well-being the way I should be, other than the fact that she's just a woman, and also that they mispronounced Ra's al Ghul. It is Ra's al Ghul. It's not Roz. It's Ra's.
They did. And two different actresses played Rachel Dawes. In the first film you had Katie Holmes. In the second film, you have Maggie Gyllenhaal came in. Katie Holmes turned it down for a movie called Mad Money that no one saw.
Yeah.
So bad call.
Yeah.
And you know, Maggie Gyllenhaal's iteration was more personable, but I credit that to the actress, not to the writing. I do not believe she was given more.
I agree.
Script-wise characterization that made her valuable. And if even in the event that they were going to kill her in the end, spoilers, but you know, even in the event that they were going to kill her in the end, I still wasn't any more invested than I really like Maggie Gyllenhaal's performance of this character.
And then, of course, the trilogy ended with The Dark Knight Rises, which there was so much anticipation. There was so much advanced merchandising. I still remember them putting out the trailer with Gordon in a hospital room, and everyone was like, I literally can't understand what he was saying. Yeah. And this is when the sort of Nolan lashback came in. Like, I think you're like so into this, you don't care what the audience thinks. But ultimately, we got a film, while the weakest of the three films is still genuinely a pretty damn good Batman film.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's got its issues. It's actually got a lot of issues, but it is the quality is there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think Tom Hardy as Bane is terrific. It's a much better version of Bane than the one in Batman and Robin, that's for sure.
Well, for sure.
Which sadly, that guy died 2 months after who played him in the original died 2 months after that film came out from heart failure. Because he was a giant mofo.
And too much reliance on the Venom.
Yeah, probably on Venom. But
Batman's himbo.
Yeah, but Tom Hardy, this was like a big role for him as well, and propelled his career very much forward. I think to some level, maybe this had reached that point where all of the Nolan films are very dark, but this got dark to a point where I'm like, I'm just kind of sad watching this now, and very political, despite Christopher Nolan's claims that was not his intent. It's hard for me to believe that when it's Occupy Gotham was a mantra, and at the same time that Occupy Wall Street was political. Going on. Yeah. I know. I was like, okay. But we're running out of time. We're not going to go movie by movie, but we got to say Ben Affleck is Batman. He was in a couple different movies. He got Batman v Superman, which I think is
having this conversation earlier.
One of the worst movies ever I've ever seen.
How
Ben Affleck was a great Batman.
He really
who
was.
Never got the chance to show.
My heart goes out to him.
Yeah.
Especially as a fan. And it's so funny, too, because you get all these fanboys on the internet who are like, oh, these actors don't even like Batman. And then you get an actor who is like a hardcore Batman stan and just really wasn't given the opportunity to be a good Batman, like just try as he might, as much as he could, and all of the struggle that sort of came along with him having to take, you talk about like, Halle Berry taking the heat for being the star of a bad movie when the actor is not the problem. And I feel like Ben Affleck is really the poster child for like the actor is not the problem here, but he's taking all the heat.
Well, I do feel like in those movies that weren't very good, people still recognize that Ben Affleck was good in the role.
Yeah, I like to think so, because I'm not a fan of those movies, including his appearance in the Justice League or Zack Snyder's Justice League, depending which one you prefer. I actually, and this is the only time you'll ever hear me say that I prefer a Zack Snyder version of a movie, but I actually do prefer his cut to
everybody does.
But Batman gets a lot more to do.
Either of them.
Neither one is particularly good.
It's just one is better than the other.
But I agree with you. Batfleck, as they say, I think is genuinely good in the part. It's just not a very good script.
Right.
But we will be seeing him one more time play that role, because what's happening in the near future is we have The Flash coming out soon. Where not in November, not only he will be coming back as Batman from that connected universe, but Michael Keaton will return as Batman because, as we all know, everything's got to be about multiverses now. I'm still waiting for him to do it with James Bond.
Nothing gets to die. Anything you saw in the 80s or 90s, it will be back. Sorry. They're digging up the graves and making those things come back.
I'm glad that they're bringing Keaton back, and I'm excited about that, but that does kind of kill my dreams for a Batman Beyond Terry McGinnis movie where he plays Bruce Wayne.
Well, it's multiverse.
I really think that would have been so much better.
It's multiverse.
And I need it.
So you don't know that won't happen.
I think this more lends itself to that.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Because in his multiverse, he is an aged Batman.
Yeah.
Who's not to say that goes on and goes, well, the next movie we make is in that universe.
I'm going to need Terry McGinnis now.
But he'll also be appearing in Batgirl, which will be coming out also towards the end of this year.
Is that a movie or another CW
No, it is a movie.
No, it's a movie.
It's a straight up movie.
With Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser is Firefly. I'm like, I love Brendan Fraser, but does anyone give a shit about Firefly?
I do now.
I mean, maybe the TV
I stand
show.
him. I stand him so hard. I only want happy things to happen to him for the rest of his life.
But we are going to be ending this episode, and we'll be, if you go to oneofus.net, you're going to see Martin and I giving you a full spoiler review for the brand new live action film from director Matt Reeves, The Batman. The Batman. I'm Chris Cox from oneofus.net.
I'm Martin Thomas. You can catch me at Double Toasted.
I'm Danni Danger with Bowls.
And we'll see you again next week.